Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and hope you're having a great day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And on that note, I am asking this question: why do people hate? Growing up in Sunday school, hate was the worst word you could say. My Sunday school teacher would drill into our heads, you're not supposed to hate anybody. You're not supposed to hate anybody. And as you grow older, you understand that the underlying reference there is white people, because those are the people we live close to. And this was the Old South, the old slave strongholds. Alabama was a slave state. And people like my Sunday school teacher remembered their grandparents really coming through the hardships of the second slavery. So the big challenge for them was not to hate, because they understood it wasn't going to get them anywhere. And they also wanted to instill in the next generation, do not hate. So we always got, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak, but he is strong. So we had love and love each other drilled into us in church, and it was reinforced in our homes and in the school. You're not supposed to hate. You're not supposed to hate. And yet we see in the world, and it's really not necessarily black people and white people. It's black people and black people. It's white people and white people. It's other races of people and other races of people. There seems to be hatred all around us. And the situation in the Middle East now is just heartbreaking. And I don't really know enough about what's going on over there to know who's right or who's wrong. I just know that it is terrible. And you can't have I don't see how love can prevail in a situation where you can just go and level a city of people, or you can go into somebody else's country and kill a bunch of people. It just seems horrific to me. And then back here in the United States, I was on X, which used to be Twitter, and I saw Stephen A. Smith having a rant. And he called Jason Whitlock a fat bastard and said that he despised him. And we know that despise is a synonym for hate. So this is two black men and one man saying that he hates the other one. Now, Jason Whitlock is not many of our favorite commentators, and not somebody we would want for a brother or a father, because he seems to be a flunky for these conservative types who will justify anything that's done against black people by white people or anybody else. The black people are always in the wrong. And he's one of these single mother haters. I believe he was raised by a single mother. And instead of working things out with his mother, he has jumped on the hate single black mothers bandwagon. Since there is so much talk about single black mothers, I am really trying to understand why so many black men have such a problem with single black mothers. In Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, he's writing to his son about growing up in Baltimore among black people, surrounded by the police. And he talks about how fearful it is growing up as a young black man, knowing that your life could be taken from you over nothing by either a black person or the police. And this is a man that was brought up with a father. So I'm sure that being brought up without a father makes it even more frightening. And while I understand the challenges of growing up without a father, I do not understand why all of the responsibility is on the mother. Because a black woman, even a black woman, cannot have a child without the assistance of a man. Why isn't the father held accountable too? Why isn't there a movement about runaway fathers. But back to the topic at hand. Why do people hate? Listen to what Stephen A. Smith said about Jason Whitlock.
Now, there's a lot of people out there that want me to address other names. There's one particular person who will remain nameless, and I will not deny it. I think he's a fat, no-good bastard who I despise to the core. That is not Marcellus Wiley I'm talking about. It ain't hard to figure out who the hell I'm talking about. I'm where I'm at. That particular individual is where he's at. And I'll leave it at that. And no, I'm not talking about Marcellus Wiley again. No, I'm not talking about my former colleague on First Take. No, I'm not talking about them. They ain't fat bastards who are seeds of the devil, wishing nothing but black folks harm. But I'll leave that for another day, for when the time is right.
So that's what Stephen A. Smith had to say about Jason Whitlock. And did he call him the seed of the devil? I wasn't sure about that. Now, there are a lot of black people who talk about Stephen A. Smith. He's a loudmouth, he's a know-it-all, he's a this, and he's a that. Some people might even call him a sellout. But Stephen A. Smith is nothing like Jason Whitlock. And whatever it is that Jason Whitlock has done, it must have been substantial. Because Stephen A. Smith usually doesn't talk about people personally like that. But it sounded like hatred to me. And speaking of hate, one of the things that I found interesting, that I do find interesting living here in the South, is that the white people whose family members owned slaves or enslaved black people are very often easier to get along with than the white people who didn't own slaves or didn't enslave people. I have always found that very curious, that you can reason with the white people whose family came on those, because some of them still have these big plantation houses, or they have a lot of land where the plantation was. These white people are easier to deal with and more pleasant than the ones who were poor from the slavery days until now. And so I was listening to Steve Harvey morning shows. I listen to Steve Harvey sometimes because I like those strawberry letters that Shirley Strawberry reads. And somebody asked, that was this morning, asked him something about hatred and why people hate or something like that. And Steve Harvey said something very profound. He said, hate comes from the bottom. So people who are at the bottom are the ones who generate the hate. And I thought about that. That certainly is true when I think about white Southerners. The ones who don't have anything are at least as bad or worse than the ones who do. Steve Harvey says that's why you call them bottom feeders, because they hate from the bottom. The hate comes from the bottom. They hate people who have more than they have, or they hate people who have something that they want. And that's really not so far off the mark. You know, when you think about jealousy and you think about back in the day at school, the kids who gave you the hardest time, those were kids who thought that you were better than they were. Sometimes kids hated other kids because they wore better clothes, or they were lighter skinned, or they had longer hair, or their parents drove them to school in a car and you had to walk to school in the rain. So it makes sense that people who feel like they lack something or don't have what they need or what they want hate people who do. So they went after you. And I think we all had some of that. It's called bullying. But hate comes from the bottom. So there's something going on in your life that's lacking. And you take that hatred and generate it toward another person. And I see people that come on my channel, and if they see my name, Boule, and then they decide that, oh, well, I know where you're coming from. They don't know anything about me. And I refuse to be bullied by these people. They leave insulting comments or make insulting insinuations about people who have worked very hard to get where they are in life. Black people who are successful have just as many challenges as black people who are not. But because some people decide that I'm going to challenge myself, I'm going to do it, I'm going to put everything I have into making my life be what I want it to be. So the people who are successful have to do that. Then you got this other crowd standing on the sideline booing you and claiming that you took something from them. That is a passive kind of hatred that we have in the black community, and it's done to stifle successful people's progress and shame them because the non-successful bullies didn't have the courage to get out there and fight for what they wanted. But I go back to my Sunday school class. My Sunday school teacher was a community lady. She was a church lady. She was a club lady. And she was a lady with a lot of pride in herself. Her goal was to teach us and develop us and to teach us to rely on ourselves and to have confidence in ourselves and not to look at other people and what other people were doing, but to look inside of ourselves to be the best that we could be. And so growing up in my community, we didn't have a lot of conflict. People have black on black crime. Once in a while something would come up in that community, but the people in the community lived together as community members, helping each other and trusting each other. For the early part of my childhood, we didn't even lock our doors. I think television came in with all of the nonsense that was going on television, and I think it seeped into our lives because we really did not have a crime problem. So I don't know when so much of this anger and hatred seeped in. It seems now everybody is mad about something, and it's somebody else's fault. It's something to do with somebody else. I'm mad, and it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault that I'm mad. I go back to what my Sunday school teacher said. Hate is really the worst thing that you can let into your life because it builds up on itself. You start out being mad at one person, and then you're mad at somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And before you know it, you are filled with hate, and everybody sees it. This is one of Booker T. Washington's famous quotes. I would permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him. Now, this is a man that went through slavery, Reconstruction, endured every kind of humiliation and degradation you could imagine. And yet he would say, you're not going to make me hate you. Now that's powerful. Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. And it would be to all of our advantage to do the same thing. Look in the mirror. The problem is in the mirror, and the answer is in the mirror. We need to take a look inside ourselves and see what is lacking. What is it that we need to live healthy and to live peacefully with other people? What is it that we need? Hate is a powerful emotion. When you delve into the reasons why people hate, the one word that keeps popping up is fear. There's something we fear. And this is what the scripture says about fear. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so what is going to overcome the fear and the hatred is love. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.